Welcome everybody to the 40 Finance channel. My name's Jeff Beers. Today I'm going to be looking at Square stock, talking a little bit about where Square has been, where it's going in the future, and is this stock a buy for 2020 at its current price levels. And quick disclaimer, as always, my stock picks and projections are my opinion. Please talk to a financial professional before taking on the risks of investing in the stock market. But as always, if you are interested in stock market analysis, going deep on stocks like Square, looking at investment ideas and personal finance tips, please subscribe to the 40 Finance channel. Thank you to everybody who's subscribed so far. All right, if you're not familiar, Square is a payment processor. They started out originally for small to medium-sized businesses, offering them an affordable point-of-sale solution. You've probably come across those card readers that are attached to phones. There's also those iPad-like touchscreens you see in a lot of small businesses where you can pay with your credit card. So they are helping small to medium-sized businesses who can't really afford to invest in a big POS system across multiple locations. They're helping those folks get online faster with payment processing, and it's been a great success story so far. The other side of Square is in personal finance, where they offer things like their Cash App, which is very similar to Venmo, which allows you to send and receive money between individuals. Lately, they've also developed the Cash App to be more of a ecosystem where you can actually have direct deposits, you can have an ATM card, things like that. Square is focused on offering digital financial services to those people who traditionally have not signed up with banks, or in the case of small and medium-sized businesses, really can't afford to buy into a whole new software system just to get their doors open. Now, Square recently came out with their first quarter earnings, which obviously was in the midst of the pandemic. So it's always interesting to see how a digital payments company went through the ebbs and flows of this difficult time. And I'll highlight some good and bad things that happened with Square. At the top there, in March, the Cash App added its largest number of net new transacting active customers, benefiting from significant shifts in consumer behavior. So great growth story for Cash App. Makes a lot of sense considering the lockdown, etc. Right below that, though, is a concerning line item when you look at net income loss for the first quarter year over year. They lost $106 million in net income, and that is significantly more than they've seen over the past 4 quarters. The Q4 number is inflated because they had a sale of a food delivery service, Caviar, or else in Q4 they would have eked out a small profit. But $106 million loss, unfortunately for Square, that's $70 million more than they lost in Q1 of 2019. And with that, if you go down to the very bottom and you look at adjusted EBITDA of $9 million, you have minus 85% year over year. And they call this out as including a significant increase in reserves for transaction and loan losses. So obviously, anytime you're dealing with credit cards, loans, things of that nature, and not to mention small and medium-sized businesses have had it pretty rough here in 2020. Square's had a rough go out of the gate. Certainly pulled back a lot of their growth plans, at least for 2020, while they try to get everybody through here. My guess is as good as anyone, first of all, but seeing the economy the way it is, we'll have to figure that it's going to set them back at least from par for another year or so, while all these small and medium-sized businesses, at least the ones that didn't go out of business, get back to that transaction volume that Square was counting on. All right, looking at Square stock today, you got a price of $98.27. You see on the year-to-date chart off to the right that is actually pretty close to their 52-week high, which landed at $100. So despite the economic struggles that Square has seen on the balance sheet, you still have had some growth in the stock. So you're heading towards a 52-week high, which, you know, depending on your investment outlook, that could be kind of risky, considering that the news on the balance sheet and the revenue side has not been good, yet the stock is still coming across as trading near a high tide over the last 12 months. P ratio at 148.67. You've got a forward PE there at the top at 204. Trailing 12 months revenue of $5 billion, cash on hand of $2.4 billion, and a debt load of $2.1 billion. In my opinion, that's a manageable debt load even at $2 billion, simply because you have enough cash to cover it, and your revenue numbers, while revenue is not profit in Square's case, you got enough money to come in to reasonably service your debt load. All right, so is Square's stock price of $98 a good deal here in June of 2020? In order to answer that question, we're going to look at the valuation metrics over the past several quarters. And once again, we've got some highlighted rows here. You got a trailing PE right now of 137. This Yahoo chart does not get updated as frequently as the slide before, so it's usually a few days behind. But trailing PE on this chart of 137. You can see that just even back in March of 2020, you had a trailing PE of 64. However, on the bright side, you had NAs across the board heading into the end of 2019. So there is at least profits on paper for Square, which is a great thing. Forward PE, however, is much higher than we've seen over the past several quarters at 204. The last highest number was 107 back in March 31st. Price to sales of 8.3 is on par with the number that they had last June. However, there's been a couple quarters in there, most notably March of 2020, where you could have got it for as low as 5.18. Same thing as price to book. That looks to be about midline of the performance that we've seen over the past several quarters there. So from a valuation perspective, it looks like Square's price today is running a little bit hotter than it has been over the past few months. So this is something to consider if you have not started a position yet. You may want to wait for that price to come down if you believe the stock market has another correction, or if you believe that Square's next quarterly report will reflect more trouble from the small to medium business segment that they serve. All right, let's take a look at the TipRanks dashboard to see how the best performing analysts rate Square over the next 12 months. Shout out as always to TipRanks. I am a paid subscriber. I use TipRanks to get a feel for how analysts are tracking stocks. They also have insider trading, hedge fund activity, and a lot of other cool features that you don't get on like a Yahoo or a CNBC. My referral link is in the description if you're interested in checking it out and supporting the channel. From a Square perspective, however, what we're seeing right now is 10 buys, 14 holds, and 4 sells across the 28 best performing analysts in TipRanks who cover Square. You got a median price target of $72.58. On the high side, we have a price target of $95. The low is $39. One thing I always do check, particularly in this volatile market, is when these analyst ratings have come in. And the last few, which have occurred over the past 3 days, have price targets of 95, 95, and 78. So the freshest price targets are still under the price that Square was trading at here today. So be cautious if you're expecting to get a quick return out of Square in the short term. All right, looking through their investor reports, I think one of the more intriguing parts for me had really nothing to do with the Square small to medium-sized business payment processing ecosystem. It's really around Cash App and some of the things that they've been able to add in terms of services, most notably in some markets with some banks. you have been able to attach a routing number to your Cash App that basically is allowing it to work as a bank for you. And you see the green bar chart off to the right hand side. Those are the number of direct deposit transacting active customers during the month of April compared to the months before. So huge input. And what Square is saying in that box, and I won't read the entire thing and bore you, is that the stimulus check world actually opened a lot of people's need to have that routing number so that they could get their stimulus checks. And with Cash App opening up that feature in certain markets, it was a big win for the Cash App. And frankly, for me, looking ahead from a technology standpoint, I think that this is a huge win for Square, and it kind of changes the game in that sort of unbanked segment. Like if you can connect a routing number to your phone somehow, some way, and you can pay bills and you can receive money through the traditional direct deposit, I think that this is really exciting for the future. The one thing I couldn't find out is if PayPal and Venmo were able to offer the same thing. I'm sure that from a competition standpoint, they will certainly be grinding to add that feature soon. But for now, I can only confirm that Square was able to roll this out. And to be clear, this is not in every market. They have to partner with banks, and there's probably going to be some political noise as this continues to roll out. All right, and speaking of PayPal, that is obviously Square's number one competitor, right? Their feature sets are sort of the same. PayPal, I don't believe, bothers too much with the point of sale systems for restaurants and small shops. What I've always liked about PayPal is the way they're ingrained with huge e-commerce companies, multi-billion-dollar corporations. They have the big dogs. And Square knows that, and that's why they've elected to target the small businesses where they can offer quick setup. And then they both have this personal finance side, Venmo versus Cash App, banking services for people who traditionally have not gone to a formal bank. So they're neck and neck on the consumer side. And on the business side, I would say that Square is in a smaller segment, whereas PayPal is likely going to have less businesses in their Rolodex, so to speak, but they're huge businesses, right? So you get one Walmart-esque business on board, and you could pretty much trump Square's entire balance sheet just by having that one big dog. Now on the personal finance side, I think it's going to be a little bit more neck and neck. And I found this article from Fortune. I was trying to get some stats from the pandemic that helped us trying to figure out who was winning on the front lines with these Cash and Venmo apps. And Fortune quoted a guy, Adam Blacker, at Apptopia, whatever that is. The number of US downloads for Venmo grew 16.5%, and Square's Cash App grew 20%. And in raw numbers, Cash App was the most popular download with nearly 4 million new downloads, while Venmo and PayPal saw 2.5 million and 2 million respectively. So from a raw number standpoint, so in this short case from April to May, Cash App got 4 million new downloads, Venmo and PayPal together got 4.5. So that's obviously impressive because Cash App, almost beat out the combined download numbers. Where it gets a little weird is we just don't have the information of how much the average deposits were, what kind of customers were these, did they, do they have a higher net worth, so on and so forth. So the value of the customer is very difficult to figure out when you're talking about simple downloads. For all we know from any of these companies, it could be bot downloads. I'm not suggesting that any of these companies do that, but there is that potential. All right, so what's the bottom line for me on Square? The first thing I'll say is the digital payments business, as most of you know, I'm not only intrigued by it, but I'm in love with the business model. This is a great business to be in. I like that Square is diversified between small businesses and personal finance. So it's almost inevitable that this company is going to grow and make more money and, make a strong run towards more profitability in the future. I think though with the small business and medium-sized business take and what's just happened here with so many companies that are going to go bankrupt, Cash App and international expansion, that's where Square is going to probably win the fastest. Trying to develop small, medium business POS sales in this particular economy is going to be very difficult. However, I could see them landing in international where there is, very few resources for businesses to have a POS like Square. So I could see sales flying out the door internationally. And obviously the personal finance segment, which we just covered, that's a huge unlock for me. I think that is going to generate a ton of revenue, not only for Square, but PayPal and other competitors as well. Now, the current price and current PE and all the things we know about the ways the world is trending, I wouldn't buy today at $98, I will say that. I would definitely wait for the price to come down if I were starting a new position. I think we're in an area of volatility in the market, and I just feel like if you wait a little bit longer, you're going to save some money by being patient and just waiting for the volatility of the market to bring the price down a little bit. It's not that Square won't go up from 98 over the next 3 to 5 years. It's just if you're starting a position, let's try to get in at the best deal possible. My opinion, that is not today. And in closing, as most of you know, I prefer PayPal only because it's a much bigger company. They have established relationships with huge players in the payment space on both the e-commerce side and the individual side. They've got a great balance sheet, tons of money to go out and acquire different things. So I like the way PayPal has been doing business. They are not going to grow as fast as Square from a 0 to whatever because Square simply is not even at the level of PayPal right now. But for the long term, that's my pick. I would also throw Visa in there from a digital payments perspective, which is another stock that I love. So definitely compare those two before you jump into Square. All that being said, digital payments, guys, anything with tracking money going forward on the internet, I think is a great place to be. Not sure you can go wrong with any of those stocks over the next 5 years if you just buy and hold them because the industry is on fire right now. All right, so those are my opinions on Square. Hope you guys enjoyed them. Please give me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I will see you on the next video.